Project 2025, what is it? And why is your liberal aunt freaking out about it on Facebook? We are going to break it down today, give you all of the fact checks, and just take a deep, calming breath about the crazy fear-mongering around this project. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Good Ranchers. Go to goodranchers.com. Use code Allie at checkout. That's goodranchers.com. Code Allie. Hey guys, welcome to Relatable. Happy Thursday. All right, we are finally talking about Project 2025. I don't think I have ever gotten as many messages about one subject as I have about Project 2025. And there are so many details to this because this is a huge document. You're hearing a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and we are going to do our best to get into all of that. We probably won't be able to get into every piece of it today just because it is so much. This will probably be an ongoing conversation as we get closer to the election because now the left has kind of found their hook. They found their thing that they are going to use to try to convince you that Trump is going to become this theocratic dictator as soon as he takes office. They know that they can't hoist up Joe Biden as this awesome candidate, this defender of democracy, so they've got to make Trump look as bad as humanly possible. And since Trump is starting to moderate on some things, as we will discuss later in the episode, they really need to make him look like this far right so-called fascist figure. And they are doing that through Project 2025. So what is it? Who wrote it? What are people saying about it? Are they right? Are they wrong? We will get into that. And today we will have someone helping me with all of this, and that is our new associate producer, and her name is Jessica. So I just wanted to introduce Jessica. Jessica is waving if you are watching this on YouTube, and I will throw to her probably a few times throughout this because she has done a deep dive on Project 2025. We will not even get to everything she knows about it today because she has been studying this for quite a while. And so she will be our reference, not just today, but probably in all the upcoming episodes that we will have about Project 2025. So when I have a question or I need clarity on something, we will be throwing to our new associate producer, Jessica. All right, let's get into it. You have been seeing every MSNBC commentator, every liberal influencer, your left-wing Biden-loving crazy aunt posting on Facebook about Project 2025 and how absolutely terrible it is. Now, I first heard about Project 2025, I think a couple years ago. Maybe it was more recent than that. Maybe it was about a year ago. And how I heard it was a set of policy proposals put forth, or an agenda that was compiled by the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative think tank. It is now run by Kevin Roberts. He used to be the head of Texas Public Policy Institute, and he is very conservative, has taken the Heritage Foundation in what I think is a very positive and more conservative direction, and that he basically helped compile this agenda for the next Republican president. And at the time, of course, they didn't know that Donald Trump was going to be the nominee when they were bringing this together. And it was really talked about on the right as this very positive thing, just a group of conservative thinkers coming together to kind of list some Republican conservative priorities. It's only been over the last few months, and in particular the last couple of weeks, that I've seen it talked about so feverishly and so much, everyone freaking out about it. And my first thought was, wait, is this the same thing? Is this the same thing that I heard about a year ago or 2 years ago that really wasn't seen as a threat at all? It was kind of even pie in the sky, idealist, according to some people on the left and even some people on the right. I really never heard it talked about as some big existential threat. And now we are hearing about it as basically the modern day Mein Kampf. I'm not kidding you. Here is SOT 3, an MSNBC commentator talking about how scary Project 2025 is.
Because Project 2025 is the GOP's version of Mein Kampf. The difference is Mein Kampf is only 700 pages. Project 2025 is 900 pages. It wants to control all of our lives, and this Supreme Court is now putting that into effect through the bench. If Trump wins, we're doing this show in a camp somewhere. That's the reality of the world we live in right now.
I mean, a camp? What? I missed the part of Project 2025 that it says Joy Reid and her show will have to be airing from some kind of concentration camp. Oh my goodness, these people. His name is Dean Obadala. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think I've seen him on X before say unhinged things over the years. So this is apparently just like Mein Kampf, he says. Here are some headlines. MSNBC, Project 2025, DOJ as Office of Vengeance, emboldened by Trump's presidential immunity. Oh my goodness, guys. What would it be like if we had a Department of Justice that was going after the president's political enemies? We've never seen anything like that. The DOJ sicking themselves on peaceful pro-lifers or calling concerned parents, bringing up their concerns at school board meetings terrorists. Wow, that would be so scary to have a DOJ like that. Good thing we don't currently have that with the present administration. Democrats' War Room says Trump's Project 2025 agenda would hurt Black Americans. Rolling Stone, inside the MAGA plan to attack birth control, surveil women, and ban the abortion pill. Democrat nonprofit Democracy Forward published The People's Guide to Project 2025, which claims to highlight the most profound threats to the American people. Their guide calls Project 2025 a radical playbook that presents a profound threat to the American people, our freedoms, and our democracy. Rolling Stone, Toronto Star, Washington Post, they all say how scary it is, how terrifying it is. That's the adjective that I've seen over and over again, that it is terrifying. Joe Biden also attempts to say something about Project 2025. Let's see if you can make it out. Here's SOT 1.
Project 2025 will destroy America. Look it up.
Rumor has it he had to have a teleprompter for that clip, and it took a few times and even a few jump cuts to get it right. So his campaign has obviously been posting a lot about Project 2025 and how terrifying it is. For example, on Joe Biden's Instagram page, I'm sure he made this graphic himself, says Trump reveals new details of Project 2025. Trump says he wants to let states monitor women's pregnancies. Trump says he supports states throwing women in jail if they get an abortion. Trump says he might ban abortion medication nationwide if he wins. And we're going to get into the fact checks about this, but I can just say right now that that's not true. That Trump has not said any of those things. That is just a literal lie. I'm sure that Instagram will put up some sort of warning and fact check on that post, right? Because they are completely unbiased when it comes to political misinformation and disinformation. Other Democrats also have warnings about Project 2025. We'll get into that in a second. Let me pause. Let me tell you about our first sponsor for the day, and that is Every Life. So in this world of propaganda and insanity, let me tell you some sane truth. Baby lives matter. Babies in the womb matter. They're not just some abstract political issue. They're human beings made in the image of God. And unfortunately, it's not just people in government who do not care if those babies live or die. It's also these major corporations, even diaper companies, that take the money that you spend there and then donate it to pro-abortion politicians and pro-abortion organizations. If you don't want to have anything to do with the abortion industry, then buy your diapers from Every Life. Every Life is the only pro-life diaper company. They take your money not only to provide you with excellent, high quality diapers. It's what we use in our home, but also to support pro-life causes, to support pro-life organizations, and to support their employees who are pregnant or who are adopting. They make sure that those employees are completely taken care of as they become parents, either for the first time or for the second or third time, or however many times. They make sure that their parents in their company are well taken care of. You can also buy their Buy for a Cause bundle, which provides free resources to pregnant moms who are in need. If you go to everylife.com and use code Allie10, you can save 10% on your order. Again, it's what we use in the Stuckey house. We love our Everylife diapers. Everylife.com, code Allie10. Representative Ayanna Pressley, she is a far left Democrat congresswoman, part of the squad. She is warning about Project 2025. Here's thought two.
And we must sound the alarm. Project 2025 is a far-right manifesto. It is a 1,000-page bucket list of extremist policies that would uproot every government agency and disrupt the lives of every person who calls this country home.
She says the Department of Justice would go on a murdering spree, rushing to use the death penalty and circumvent due process protections. She says it calls for national book bans in schools, but also creates a list of banned words. Banned words, it says. Diversity, gender, reproductive health, abortion. You're not going to be able to say the word abortion if Project 2025 gets implemented. She says abortion care, which of course is an oxymoron, would be inaccessible and illegal no matter where you live. Okay, well, abortion is literally murdering a baby. Oh my gosh, shock of all shocks. Pro-lifers want that to be illegal. Chuck Schumer, Democrat Senate Majority Leader, says Project 2025 is the Trump manifesto. It's staffed by former Trump officials. It's connected to his cabinet, former campaign advisors, political appointees. It lays the groundwork for a national abortion ban, defunding law enforcement, empowering big oil, and silencing his opponents. Okay, actually, this is the most fair assessment that I've seen from the left of Project 2025, and it's still completely unfair and dishonest. But at least he is saying that it's connected to Trump via former Trump campaign officials and people have worked for Trump. At least he is not saying that Trump is a part of Project 2025, which is what the other parts of the left are unabashedly saying, which, as we will get into, is completely untrue. Hillary Clinton says Trump is desperate to make sure voters don't know about Project 2025, is his team's blueprint for American dictatorship. Oh, that's our cue to make sure our friends and family know all about it. New Republic, she links to an article by them, which is truly an extremist, far-left communist rag. Trump fails to distance himself from Project 2025. Okay, listen to this, guys. And I promise we're going to get into what it is. I just want to set it up for you, like how actually insane the reaction to this is. And then once we explain to you what Project 2025 is, you're going to be like, oh, that's what they are freaking out about. I guarantee you most of these people talking about it have not read a single word of the actual document that is available publicly online, by the way. Oh, it's so hidden. No, literally anyone can read it. You can go read it yourself. I encourage you to, by the way. Here's Reddit, and you should follow the account if you are on X. You should follow the account Reddit Lies, because it just posts ridiculous propaganda and lies believed and perpetuated by Redditors. So the Reddit Lies tweeted this: 39 different Redditors have now written notes referencing Project 2025. Oh my goodness. So this is a subreddit called Watch. Sad, dark. And this post is titled, "When Trump Gets Reelected, I'm Doing It." This person, and this is sad. Like, this is very sad. But I mean, misinformation, disinformation, fear-mongering has consequences. That's what The Reddit Lies account says, and I agree with that. So this person says, I know I'm going to get an influx of responses saying I have Trump derangement syndrome or whatever, or that I'm being ridiculous, but I don't care. I'm just tired of fighting it all. It's very clear that this man will never face consequences or justice. Neither will anyone who is rich. I've read Project 2025. I've seen what he has planned for everyone and how it will affect the entire world on a climate level. And frankly, I don't want to live through that. I don't see a point in fighting any more of the bad guys. Just always win. I'm done. And sadly, I saw another post on Reddit that said that basically Trump is going to kill all transgender people when he gets into office. And so that person is thinking about unaliving themselves. And here's a liberal TikToker saying what's going to happen if Project 2025 gets its way. Here's top 4.
The Republican Party's agenda for women in this upcoming 2024 election is pretty clear. They want us married to men and having their children, and that is the only thing they want for us. They don't want us to be single mothers. They don't want us to be in same-sex relationships, and they definitely do not want us to be childless.
Okay, and here is Chris Hayes, the host of MSNBC's All In with Chris Hayes, top 5.
Pornography should be outlawed, and the people who produce and distribute it should be imprisoned. Project 2025 is a straight-up dictatorial fantasy of control over the American people. When they talk about revolution, taking the country back, what this means is that this small coterie of hard-right zealots, these really creepy weirdos, are going to exert total control over every aspect of your life in terms of what you look at and what you read, what you mail, what your healthcare is.
All right. So that's the reaction. And you've probably seen even crazier stuff. I think I saw whatever the guy's name is, the creator of Star Wars, tweet out with "Fear for our democracy, I dissent." And it was this infographic saying all of these things that Project 2025 wants to accomplish. And most of them simply were not true. So let's get into it. What is Project 2025? Is it as scary as what you are hearing? Is it this dictatorial fantasy by the far right? So we've summarized it as best as we possibly can. Project 2025 is a coalition of more than 110 conservative groups organized by the Heritage Foundation, which we've already mentioned, advocating policy and personnel recommendations for the next conservative president. This has existed for a while. It actually existed back in 2016. It has been edited. It has been added to over the years. It is not in any way tied to President Trump, as we will talk about in a little bit. Trump publicly on Truth Social, because I think he listens too much to what the left says. He publicly disavowed it and said some of the things in there are just terrible and he would never do. But that's besides the point right now. The truth is that it is not tied to any particular politician. It is not tied to any particular president. And it is actually true that Trump has not said, yep, I'm implementing Project 2025. I'm a part of that. Here's what you should say. Here's what you should do. This is independent of any particular administration. This will exist whether or not Trump wins this November. It will just be there and probably edited and added to over the years for whenever a Republican wins the presidency. This kind of thing, this kind of agenda is normal. They have similar things on the left, whether or not it is this broad of a coalition on the left writing its parallel agenda, or whether you have the different factions of the Democrat Party coming up with their own agenda and then influencing the administration. This is politics. This is what happens. You've got different groups coming together and saying, this is what we want to happen. Of course, you've got people on the far left who say, yeah, we want to ban all gas stoves and we want to force all electric cars. We want to make sure that homelessness is never criminalized and people can camp out in their tent cities absolutely anywhere they want to. They want to set the minimum wage nationwide at $25 an hour. They want to make sure that abortion is legal and funded by the taxpayer through all 9 months for any reason. I mean, there are literally people on the left who want to abolish motherhood Read the book Full Surrogacy Now by someone by the name of Sophie Lewis. Sophie Lewis, she is probably part of some kind of coalition and some group on the left that is listing their priorities and their goals for the next Democratic president. So this is not crazy. This is something that happens on the right or the left. So I just want to set it up with that kind of sane and rational perspective that even if you were to read through Project 2025 and it said all of these seemingly extreme radical things, which as we will get into, it really doesn't, it wouldn't matter because this is not law. And this is not something that any president has to adopt. This is not even something that Trump has indicated that he is going to adopt. But really, a lot of these proposals are very just mainstream Republican proposals that are not even as conservative as many social conservatives would want them to be. They don't go far enough in some cases, according to a lot of real die-hard conservatives. So painting this as far right is just not accurate. So what is it? Project 2025 is built on 4 foundational pillars to ensure the effective implementation of a conservative administration. These pillars are a policy agenda, the personnel database, training, and a 180-day playbook. So those are the 4 pillars of Project 2025. So the policy agenda is to develop a comprehensive set of conservative policy proposals that address major issues facing the country. So this includes areas like economic policy, healthcare, education, energy, environment, social policies. The goal is to create a robust and detailed plan that the administration can follow to achieve its objectives. Again, is the administration bound to this? No, it's a set of suggestions and goals. Personnel database. Create and maintain a database of vetted conservative individuals who are ready to fill key positions within the federal government. This ensures that the administration can quickly staff critical roles with competent and loyal personnel who align with the administration's policy goals. The pillar emphasizes the importance of having the right people in place to execute the policy agenda effectively. And this is where I am going to lean on Jessica for a second. So personnel, filling an administration is a really important step for every administration, but it is a particular struggle for a lot of conservative administrations to get the right people in the right positions that are going to be politically aligned, that are going to be loyal, simply because the government right now, especially just the bureaucratic federal government, is filled with a lot of lefties and a lot of lifelong bureaucrats who are not conservative. And so it's just really hard, I think, for a president to fill the key positions with the people that are really going to be loyal to his agenda. And Project 2025 is trying to help the conservative president do that. Is that right?
Yes, they see it as more like a conservative LinkedIn platform where they can immediately go and say, do you believe in these things? Upload your resume so that on day one, I mean, even before the moment he wins the election, we can staff these 4,000 jobs that sadly Trump just couldn't do. He couldn't fill, it was a rotating door in and out. And that's what they want to do. If you have a well-staffed job, a well-staffed administration, you can get the things done rapidly, correctly, and not worry that this person doesn't believe the agenda because they have vetted them. They have gone through there. They have made sure that these are the right people for a true conservative administration.
Yes. And you're right. This was a huge problem with Trump's last administration. He hired people that ended up being disloyal, that ended up going on CNN or MSNBC, selling their book and leaking the conversations that they had in the White House. And the Project 2025 is trying to help that. I love how you described it as like a conservative LinkedIn. Like, these are this person's credentials. This is their background. This is the kind of person that they've worked for in the past. This is the work that they've done. And so you can see, okay, this person actually aligns with the goals that the president has. They're not just trying to work for any president. They actually believe in this conservative agenda. You can bet your bottom dollar Democrats do that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've already seen that the Biden administration likes to take the holdovers from Obama, and there isn't really a holdover from Trump. We have to go back to Bush. So we need to make sure that these people are true conservatives, and they don't necessarily need to be coming out of the Reagan School at Texas A&M. They can come from varying places and be vetted before they get there, and they will stay.
Yeah. Right. And some people kind of freak out when you hear the word like loyal, but yes, Democrats are looking for that too. Biden is looking for that too. You want someone to be loyal because you want them to be trustworthy. That doesn't mean that they're going to compromise their ethics in order to work for President Trump. That's not what they're looking for. But you do want someone to be loyal to their job, loyal to the administration. Of course, that's important. Okay, so the personnel database, that is one pillar of this. Then the training. So within Project 2025, they provide extensive training for individuals who will be part of the administration through the Presidential Administration Academy. This training includes workshops, seminars, online videos, mentorship programs led by experts with experience in previous administrations. The aim is to equip these individuals with the necessary skills and knowledge to implement conservative policies effectively from day one. 180-day playbook. Develop a detailed action plan for the first 180 days of the new administration. This playbook outlines specific steps to reverse the policies of the previous administration, that would be the Biden administration, and implement conservative reforms quickly. The focus is on immediate actions that can bring swift relief to Americans and set the tone for the rest of the administration's tenure. And so if you're just looking at these 4 pillars, it looks like the goal is, again, whether you agree with the particular proposals and policies or not, you can tell that the goal is to make a conservative president with the short time that they have. Because remember, if it's Trump, he's only going to have max 4 years. He's only going to have 4 years. And so they want to make sure that he makes as much lasting change as possible. And as conservatives, as Republicans, that's what you want. You don't want to just get the guy in office. You want to make sure that he accomplishes as much as possible that's going to help the American people, that's going to make their financial situations better, that's going to secure the border, that's going to make families stronger, that's going to make education more effective. You want them to be able to get in there and as quickly as possible accomplish those things to make your life better, to set America up better for your kids. And so before we even get into the particular policy proposals, it's clear that that's what the goal is. It's not some kind of nefarious, malicious thing going on here. Before we get into the specific policies, let me pause and tell you about our second sponsor, and that is Good Ranchers. All right, Good Ranchers, all-American meat. They've got all-American seafood, beef, chicken. That's what we eat almost every night in the Stuckey home. We've been really loving their salmon and shrimp lately. Of course, we eat their bacon almost every morning. I just love Good Ranchers. It's what we rely on for American meat. It helps us stay healthier because we always have one healthy part of our meal already accounted for. It saves time. It makes my life easier. I don't have to go into the grocery store and wonder about the quality of meat that I'm getting or where it's from. Even when it says made in the USA, when I'm getting it from the grocery store, it typically just means manufactured. But this meat is actually raised by, processed by farmers and ranchers in the United States. Right now, when you use my code Allie at checkout, you get $100 off. That's crazy. And free Wagyu burgers for a year. Go ahead and subscribe. Get that box of American meat to your front door every month. Go to goodranchers.com, code Allie. So the Heritage Foundation, conservative think tank based in D.C., now under this new president, Roberts, it actively participates in significant debates within the right, including intra-Republican discussions about the party's future direction. They created Project 2025 so that conservatives are ready to hit the ground running alongside a Republican president in 2025. As I said, they have those 4 broad fronts, the 4 parts that we just discussed. And then they also have they have the 4 pillars that we already discussed. They have these 4 broad fronts as well. So 4 key goals, key focuses, I would say, that they want to make sure that they accomplish. They want to make sure that these parts of American life are made better and, of course, more conservative. So, one, restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. Number two, dismantle the administrative state and return self-governance to the American people. I would say that is the one that people are freaking out most about. Dismantle the administrative state. Number three, defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats. So secure the border, basically, but that means other things too. And number four, secure our God-given individual rights to live freely, what our Constitution calls the blessings of liberty. And so these are the four fronts, these are the four goals. And then within that, we've got the policy, the personnel, the training, and then the transition that we have already discussed. So the policy, this is what you are hearing most about. It's Mandate for Leadership. Like, this is a book that was actually published all the way back in 1981. It's been edited and added to over the years by conservatives to be up to date. But this is not new. All of the policies that you're hearing about from the left that, oh my gosh, this Project 2025, we've never seen something like this before. This is so scary. This is so new. Well, Mandate for Leadership, what Project 2025 is drawing from for its policy proposals, has been around since the beginning of the Reagan administration. So the latest edition of this Mandate for Leadership is over 900 pages. It was released in April 2023. So again, ask yourself, like, why is it just now circulating in the news? It's obviously strategic. This has been out for a while now. It's for sale on the Project 2025 website. It's currently sold out. It's also made available as a document for free at project2025.org. Oh my gosh, this cult is hiding it, guys. It's hiding it. It's obscuring it so much that it's actually available on its website for everyone to read. If it was really so scary and was going to impede a president from getting elected because it was the Republican Mein Kampf, as we heard on MSNBC, do you really think they would be making it available to absolutely anyone on their website? Think, people, think. Project2025.org. The forward is by Kevin Roberts, edited by Paul Dans and Stephen Groves. Every chapter of the book corresponds to one federal agency. That chapter outlines what a conservative president needs to do at that agency, or what a vision of success looks like for conservatives at each federal agency. Many of the authors previously served as political appointees under President Trump. And this is why, as I said earlier with that Chuck Schumer tweet, why many on the left say that Trump is lying about his lack of awareness regarding Project 2025. I actually think that Trump is probably telling the truth, by the way. Just because someone who used to work for Trump is helping author part of Project 2025 doesn't mean that they are calling Donald Trump and saying, hey, I'm just letting you know what I'm up to today. That I just don't think that's happening. He might know something about it, but I actually really don't think that he is intimately acquainted with the details of this. Chapter 1, the White House office, former White House Deputy Chief of Staff to President Trump, Rick Dearborn, he is writing about this, what happens here, what should happen here. Executive Office of the President of the United States by Russ Vought. We could go through all of the chapters, but it would take a while. Like I said, they correspond to different departments, different parts of the presidency that would need to be well staffed and that would execute the different policy proposals in Project 2025. Like Ben Carson wrote a chapter, for example. We have Peter Navarro wrote a chapter. Stephen Moore wrote a chapter. Some of these names are probably familiar to you. So that's part of it. That's part of what people are freaking out about, all of the policy proposals. And then again, the Presidential Personnel Database, the Presidential Administration Academy, and then the actual transition binders for each agency. So we can go through, like, what are actually some of these proposals? What is in Project 2025? Just a summary of some of these things. One, we've got economic policy. It advocates for tax reforms, deregulation. Yeah, Republicans have been advocating for that for decades. Fiscal responsibility to spur growth and reduce government intervention in the economy. Two, healthcare proposes dismantling the Affordable Care Act in favor of market-based solutions to improve healthcare access and affordability. Energy and environment supports energy independence, which we were under Donald Trump, through expanded fossil fuel production, and criticizes overregulation and environmental policies, advocating for a balance between economic growth and environmental protection. Again, very mainstream Republican position on the environment. Education calls for increased parental choice, including support for charter schools and voucher programs, and a reduction in federal involvement in education. Now, Jessica, is it just a reduction in federal involvement in education, or is it the dismantling of the federal Department of Education?
So their first goal is to alleviate what the federal government has in control of states. And then they eventually want to completely dismantle the entire Department of Education. That is their end goal. If they achieve it, who knows? But their goal is to eventually get rid of it. But they want to immediately start increasing the parent choice, taking certain things out of what the states can do, supporting private schools, charter schools, vouchers, and then working to immediately to reduce, to get rid of the Department of Education.
Which a lot of Republicans have said before. I have seen Republican Congress people say that we need to do away with the Department of Education. It hasn't always been around. It's been around for a long time now. I think it was in the beginning of the 1970s that it was created. And so we can have education without the Department of Education. A lot of things would still function if we slashed a good portion of the federal government, which seems to be one of the beliefs of Project 2025, that our federal government is just too big, it's too intrusive in the lives of Americans, and it's actually making the things that we need a lot harder, like education, right? I mean, again, pretty mainstream Republican position.
Mm-hmm. Very much. Getting rid of it. They talk about in here that schools are not advocating for families. They want to get rid of. They want to get rid of Head Start program and then replace it with more family focused. They say that some of the programs are not being utilized properly, and they are not actually helping students and achieving their goals of higher testing scores, higher graduation rates. And so that they think that if they take that out, they can start to actually make things better.
Yeah. And remember, this goes back, just like everything does, this goes back to making sure that the family, that parents are the centerpiece of American life. And if you think there doesn't need to be significant reform to public education, then you should go listen to the podcast Sold a Story. Why is it that a huge percentage of fourth graders are illiterate? I don't just mean can't read well. I mean they cannot read. Why is it that over 80% of Black fourth graders are reading at a kindergarten level or below? Because we have a huge problem with our public education system, which is beholden to teachers' unions. We should not have public unions. By the way, that means your tax dollars are funding the teachers' unions, who are then turning around and funding the Democrat Party. So you as a Republican should not be forced to fund the Democrat Party in the same way that I think that Democrats shouldn't be forced to fund the Republican Party through their taxes paying for, say, the police unions. And so public unions, I think, are unethical in general, but especially when it comes to their cartel control of the public education system. We have so much money flooding into our public education system. It is not a funding issue. It's just that all of our funding has been flooding into bloated bureaucracy of the public education system, has not made its way to teachers and has not made its way to students. It is not because we do not fund the education system. It is because our education system in America is largely, not saying every individual teacher or even every individual bureaucrat, but is largely corrupt. We have a bad process, and it's headed up by the Department of Education. And so that is why this is a Republican goal. You should look back. The Washington Post covered this. It's hard to find. And so If we find the link, I'll put it in the description of this episode. But the Obama administration, they tested this. If we give a ton of money to these failing Chicago schools, how successful can they be over the next 4 years? And so they flooded millions of dollars into these failing Chicago schools to see if test scores and grades would go up over the following years. They didn't. Not at all. They saw no difference whatsoever because, again, this is not a funding issue. So that is one of the reasons why conservative administrations say, well, the Department of Education isn't doing their job. They're actually making it worse for teachers and students. So let's get rid of that. Let's rebuild something better. Not crazy. You might not like it. It's not crazy. Number 5, immigration. It emphasizes strict enforcement of immigration laws, securing the border, and reducing illegal immigration through various measures, including building a border law. And, Jessica, deportation, correct?
Yes.
And that is controversial.
Yes.
Controversial. Y'all told me that I say controversial wrong. Controversial. And so, yeah, some people, I saw Ben Shapiro being asked about this by Eric Swalwell. Ben Shapiro's not a part of Project 2025. So I think, it was weird that they were trying to make him answer for that. But they do call for deportation of illegal immigrants, right?
Yes, they do.
Okay. And of course, some people think that is controversial, but you broke the law. I mean, most other countries would do the same thing. All right. The defense and foreign policy, it stresses a strong national defense, increased military spending, and a more assertive foreign policy to protect national interest. The judiciary, it recommends appointing judges who adhere to originalist interpretations of the Constitution to ensure judicial restraint and uphold conservative values. Social policy, it advocates for traditional family values, religious freedom, pro-life policies, aiming to strengthen the social fabric of our nation. Now, Jessica, is it true, because social policy is the most contentious and the most just polarizing part, I think, of our political conversations for today, we heard this TikToker say that they will not allow same-sex relationships and they won't allow single motherhood. I don't know. And you also heard Chris Hayes on MSNBC say that they are going to ban pornography, which personally, don't threaten me with a good time. I think we should ban pornography. But he's saying that, okay, this means that they are going to dictate every single area of your life. Does Project 2025 aim to ban same-sex so-called marriage? What does it have to say about these things?
It doesn't say anything at all, actually. It doesn't. It does not say it wants to get rid of it. It doesn't. The divorce is not used in it. Gay marriage is not. You can go in here and Google it yourself and find in here. It's not a part of it. So this whole idea of they want to redefine marriage, and in a congressional sense or in a legislative sense, it's not in the document. What they do is they want to focus on families, a father and a mother and a 2-parent home. A family values is what they push. Yeah. They don't try to take away something that's already been decided.
Yeah.
It's just not
in
there.
And as far as LGBTQ goes, really, because again, like Jessica said, you can go into the document and then you can search for yourself. You can just, I think it's Command F or Control F, and you can search for these words. And you do see LGBTQ in the document, but it's really more in reference to what is being officially taught in curricula, right? In the classroom.
That's why they want to dismantle the Department of Education, because the government has now said that schools have to teach pronouns. They've wanted to change Title IX. They want to mandate teachers use pronouns that are against what they believe. They want to take that out. And so you don't see it as
Project 2025 wants to take that out. Department of Education is trying to put
it in. Yes.
Right. Okay. So it's not saying you can't be gay or you can't talk about homosexuality. The word homosexuality is not even in this document at all.
No, it's not. It's not. I tried many times. I was like, how many different ways can you say homosexual? And it's just, it's not. Yeah. Gay is used one time and it's in the end notes.
Yeah, as an adjective to describe the Department of Education. Not really. Just kidding. It does say transgenderism. It does say that they do not want transgender people to serve in the military.
Yes. It says that that they want to get that out. not allowed, that your gender dysphoria would be considered a disqualifying factor for being able to join the military.
Yes.
Like you can't take an SSRI and join the military. They would qualify that as
which makes sense.
Yes.
Which I think completely 100% makes sense. And not only that, but we are being asked to pay with our tax dollars for the surgeries and the hormone treatments for, I shouldn't even say treatments, hormone replacement of these people who identify as the opposite sex. Now, as far as abortion, we are hearing that they want a national abortion ban in Project 2025, but that is not true, right?
No, put in abortion ban. It does not exist in there.
They want it to be a state's issue, which is actually something that I disagree with. Like, I think that there should be a constitutional personhood amendment because these are human beings just as much as you're a human, just as much as I'm a human. It should not be legal to murder them, just like slavery shouldn't have been a states' rights issue because you were talking about subjugating human beings, treating them as subhuman. I also don't think abortion should be a state issue because you're talking about killing a human being. I know that people don't like to talk about it like that. They like to talk about it in abstract terms, but you're talking about killing a person. And so I don't think the fundamental human right to life should be up for debate or even up for a vote. I understand that there are many conservatives who disagree with me. I'm just trying to point out that Project 2025 is not even as conservative as many conservatives are when it comes to that. It's really mostly focused on how the federal government has grown, how it is filled with predominantly progressive ideologues, and trying to reduce that, to dismantle that as much as possible, to give power, yes, back to the states, but also back to the family and back to individuals, and to ensure that the family is, as it says, the centerpiece of American life. And all of the different parts of this project are aimed at achieving that goal. Now, I do have a question, Jessica. What does it say about pornography?
It does say that they would the wording that was in that video. It says that it says their product is addictive as any illicit drug and they psychological destructive as any crime. Pornography should be outlawed. The people who produce and distribute it should be imprisoned. Educators and public librarians who purvey it should be classified as sex offenders. And telecommunication and technology firms that facilitate it should be shuttered. But this was in the foreword written by the president. So this was just his perception of these things that are going on in classrooms. And he was really referencing child predators and child pornography.
Yes.
So
yes. And
that was his foreword.
Right. Well, by the way, I agree with that. This might not be a specific policy proposal of Project 2025, but I agree with that. I have debated this subject. It was at the University of Dallas a few months ago. It was me versus Charles C.W. Cook of the National Review, moderated by Rod Dreher, and I argued for the side of banning pornography. I absolutely think that we should ban pornography. It is the legal loophole for sex trafficking because age can't be verified, consent cannot be verified, and as long as you can monetize rape, as long as you can monetize sex at all, public sex, as long as you can monetize and commodify people's bodies, people will profit from the sexual abuse of women and children in particular. So that's just my aside. I am also not associated with Project 2025, would probably be even more conservative if I were. So that's just a little taste of it. We'll tell you more in just a second. Let me tell you about our next sponsor. It is Preborn. This is another awesome pro-life sponsor that I absolutely love. I mean, we talk about abortion a lot and how pervasive it is. In a lot of ways, we really do have a culture of death, and there's so much propaganda, so much disinformation, and so many euphemisms used to make abortion sound like it is a viable moral option. Like, it is palatable. You're just ending a pregnancy. You're just having a right over your body. The fact of the matter is, it is the destruction of an innocent baby before it even has the opportunity to take a breath. And so we have to do everything we can, yes, politically, but also personally, to make sure that moms have the best opportunity that they can to choose life for their child. Preborn is a large network of clinics that provides free resources to pregnant moms, pregnant families in need. And for the pregnant mom, they're offering free sonograms. She is so much more likely to choose life after she sees that baby on the sonogram. So you can help them accomplish their mission of saving as many babies as possible by going to preborn.com/Allie. Make a donation today, whatever you can donate. If it's $5, if it's $500, every little bit counts and goes toward saving the lives of children. Preborn.com/Allie. So here are claims made by Biden's campaign about Project 2025, and here's our fact check based on our reading of the actual document. So they say that they want to take away reproductive freedom nationwide. The truth is that Mandate for Leadership calls for the government to comply with laws that prevent federal funding of abortion. It also calls for federal support of alternatives to abortion, including adoption, because uses the presidency for revenge on Trump's political and personal enemies. That's what Biden is claiming, but that is false. There's no mention or insinuation of political revenge. Project 2025 recommends ensuring the assignment of sufficient political appointees throughout the Department of Justice and other departments. The number of appointees serving throughout the department in prior administrations, particularly during the Trump administration, has not been sufficient either to stop bad things from happening through proper management or to promote the president's agenda. Like, again, looking at Merrick Garland's DOJ right now, I mean, absolutely the henchmen of the Biden administration going after Biden's political enemies and the enemies of the Democrat Party, including just concerned conservative parents and peaceful pro-lifers for violating an obscure law called the FACE Act. I mean, throwing grandmothers, 70-something grandmothers in prison for standing in front of an entrance to a murder mill, aka an abortion clinic. That's the current DOJ. And we're supposed to believe that, like, we need to be scared of a Trump DOJ because they want to fill it with people that align with the president's agenda. I mean, it's just crazy. It's all projection. They also claim that it terminates the Constitution, when in fact the opposite is true. Project 2025 reads, the surest way to put the federal government back to work for the American people is to reduce its size and scope back to something resembling the original constitutional intent. In the case of making the federal government smaller, more effective, and accountable, the simple answer is the Constitution itself. But the Washington establishment doesn't want a constitutionally limited government because it means they lose power and are held accountable by the people who put them in power. That's what is at the crux of this fear-mongering. The people in charge, especially Democrats, because again, they predominantly fill the federal government, they do not want to lose power. They want to continue to grow the size of the government without them ever having to achieve anything for you. So they get more power, they get more prestige, they get more profit. That's what this comes down to. It also, according to the Biden administration, Project 2025 consolidates power in the Oval Office. This is also not true. Project 2025 proposes bringing the executive branch agencies or administrative state back under the control of the executive. The administrative state has filled the void left by Congress's inability to make clear, meaningful laws despite or because of the fact that they are unelected and seemingly unfireable. Project 2025's goal is to return the three branches of government to the proper checks and balances of the Constitution. So again, they don't want unelected bureaucrats able to make these regulations that are harming your life, harming your business, and the executive doesn't have the ability to fire them or hire them. They're just there for life without any kind of consequence. Like, you just continue to fail upward, like Anthony Fauci. He's continued to fail upward into more prominence and more power. The administrative state holds 100% of its power at the sufferance of Congress, and its insulation from presidential discipline as an unconstitutional fairy tale spun by the Washington establishment to protect its turf. Members of Congress shield themselves from constitutional accountability often when the White House allows them to get away with it. So some people read that as you're taking away checks and balances. Project 2025, agree with it or not, sees that as adding in appropriate and originally intended checks and balances. Biden also says it guts democratic checks and balances on presidential power. Again, Project 2025 actually aims to restore the executive branch to the control of the executive rather than running independently as unelected policy makers. This is what it says. When it comes to ensuring that freedom can flourish, nothing is more important than deconstructing the centralized administrative state. Political appointees who are answerable to the president and have decision-making authority in the executive branch are key to this essential task. The next administration must not cede such authority to nonpartisan experts who pursue their own ends while engaging in groupthink insulated from American voters. Biden also says it gives handouts to the ultra-wealthy paid for by working families. Fact check, false. In this section on the Department of the Treasury, Project 2025 lists their principles of good tax policy. First, it says the tax system should raise the revenue necessary to fund a limited government for constitutionally appropriate activities. They want the least economically destructive forms of policy to have the least negative impact on the taxpayer's life. They want low tax rates on a broad, neutral tax base. They want to minimize interference with the operation of the free market and free enterprise and minimize the cost to taxpayers of compliance with administration of the tax system. Second, the tax system should minimize its adverse impact on the family and the core institutions of civil society. Third, the tax system should be applied consistently with special privileges for none and respect taxpayer due process and privacy rights. All right. So that is the fact check on what the Biden administration is saying. And again, Trump is not associated with Project 2025, whether you like the project or not. We got some other fact checks here about, okay, is Trump going to monitor the pregnancies of women? What in the world? I know it's a lot to get through, but that's because there's so much out there that we are trying to rebut. We're not even going to get into all the subjects I want to talk about today, like the RNC changing its platform language. We'll have to do that next week. We got to get through the rest of this. Let me tell you about our fourth sponsor. We got 5 sponsors today. We got one more sponsor than we usually do. Our fourth sponsor is Patriot Mobile. This is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. It is the only one. They've been great supporters of this show. I'm proud to partner with them. They offer dependable nationwide coverage, giving you the ability to access all 3 major networks without funding the left. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you are sending the message that you support free speech, religious freedom, the sanctity of life, Second Amendment, and our military veterans, first responder heroes. They've got 100% US-based customer service team that makes switching really easy. You keep your number, you keep your phone, or you can upgrade. Their team will help you find the best plan for what you need. They make switching really easy. Plus, you get free activation with my code Allie. Go to patriotmobile.com/Allie, code Allie, patriotmobile.com/Allie, code Allie. Okay, so you're hearing also from the Biden administration, from the left, that they want to monitor women's pregnancies to keep abortion in check or something like that. But here's the truth. Monitoring is used only once in the Department of Health and Human Services section of Project 2025. And it is recommended that the CDC monitor and report complications due to abortion in children born alive. That is what they are recommending. That's what the left is freaking out about. That they would recommend that the CDC report on complications due to abortion in children born alive. I wonder why the left wouldn't want that. Because children survive botched abortions more than we realize. It's not reported because they are thrown away like medical waste. I know for a fact that that's happening. There have been congressional testimonies from nurses. Jill Stenak, for one example, the nurse that testified before Congress that she was working in a hospital where a baby was aborted because it had Down syndrome around 22 weeks gestation. She found that baby struggling to breathe in a janitor closet where he was pushed off to the side, where he was placed there, abandoned, struggling to live after he survived an abortion. So Gloria Williams, that was a mother whose baby survived an abortion. She screamed after she realized that her baby was born alive, and they silenced her. They put that baby in a medical waste bucket at an abortion clinic in Florida. Those are just two instances. That's happening way more than we realize in the United States. And there is no incentive, there's no requirement in many cases for these abortion providers to report this kind of thing. How absolutely horrifying and hellacious. And so, oh my goodness, Extremist Project 2025 wants states to have to report that kind of thing. They say, because liberal states, this is page 455, because liberal states have now become sanctuaries for abortion tourism, HHS should use every available tool, including the cutting of funds, to ensure that every state reports exactly how many abortions take place within its borders, at what gestational age of the child, for what reason, the mother's state of residence, and by what method. It should also ensure that statistics are separated by category: spontaneous miscarriage, treatments that incidentally result in the death of child, such as chemotherapy, stillbirths, and induced abortion. CDC should require monitoring and reporting for complications due to abortion in every instance of children being born alive after an abortion. Moreover, abortion should be clearly defined as only those procedures that intentionally end an unborn child's life. Miscarriage management or standard ectopic pregnancy treatments should never be conflated with abortion. So that is what you are hearing the left freak out about. Project 2025 mentions abortion 198 times, but not one of those times does it mention anything about throwing women in jail for abortion. Again, there are conservatives that would actually disagree with that. That would say, no, a woman should be punished by the law if it is proven through due process that she intentionally aided the murder of her child. Project 2025 doesn't say that, though. There's no mention of a nationwide ban on abortion, as we've already mentioned. In the Forward, Project 2025 says this. Kevin Roberts says, the next conservative president should work with Congress to enact the most robust protections for the unborn that Congress will support while deploying existing federal powers to protect innocent life and vigorously complying with statutory bans on the federal funding of abortion. Conservatives should ardently pursue these pro-life and pro-family policies while recognizing the many women who find themselves in immensely difficult and often tragic situations, and the heroism of every choice to become the heroism of every choice to become a mother. Alternative options to abortion, especially adoption, should receive federal and state support. That is what people are freaking out about. Now, what about what Ayanna Pressley said about the death penalty? Here's what Project 2025 says about the death penalty in the Department of Justice section of the book of Mandate for Leadership. Enforce the death penalty where appropriate and applicable. Capital punishment is a sensitive matter, as it should be, but the current crime wave makes deterrence vital at the federal, state, and local levels. However, providing this punishment without ever enforcing it provides justice neither for the victims' families nor for the defendant. The next conservative administration should therefore do everything possible to obtain finality for the 44 prisoners currently on federal death row. It should also pursue the death penalty for applicable crimes, particularly heinous crimes involving violence and sexual abuse of children, until Congress says otherwise through legislation. Duh. That's not even as harsh, again, as many conservatives say. The death penalty should absolutely be on the table, should be consistently given for capital murder, for sex crimes against children, 100%. For child pornographers, 100%. Yes. Not even a question. You think that's controversial? Well, then something's wrong with you. Why don't you want a child rapist to be executed? Why don't you want the person who has committed a heinous murder against a woman or child or man but I'm just listing some of the most vulnerable people that are heinously murdered by the murderers on death row. Why wouldn't you want them to be executed? That is justice. Christians, don't be misguided by the progressive language about the death penalty, that it is categorically unjust. You can take issue with how it's applied in some cases. It's not categorically unjust because the God who created justice in Genesis 9 demands the death penalty for murder. And that is pre-Israel. That's pre-civilization. And it's based on a principle that is still true today, that man was made in God's image. Genesis 9:6. You can go check it out for yourself. And this country is built on basic Christian principles. That doesn't mean it's a theocracy. It's just that every law speaks to a moral worldview. The only question is ever which one. There's a reason why we have Moses in our halls of power, depicted in our halls of power in Washington, D.C., and not Buddha, okay? Like, we actually have a moral worldview on which our country and our laws are based and supposed to be based. She also says, remember that there are banned words in Project 2025. That is not true. They do say that we should, in the institutions of American civil society, because they are targets for woke culture warriors, we should get rid of terms like sexual orientation and gender identity, diversity, equity, inclusion, gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitive, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights out of every federal rule, agency regulation, contract, grant regulation, and piece of legislation that exists. Agree with that. That doesn't mean you're not going to be able to use those terms. Her claim of book bans, there was no mention of book bans in the entire 900 plus page document. What Project 2025 does want to ban, in the Department of Education section, Project 2025 proposes that no public education employee or contractor shall use a name to address a student other than the name listed on the student's birth certificate without the written permission of the student's parents or guardians. It makes the same recommendation for pronouns that differ from the student's biological sex. Yeah, of course. Again, duh. Students should not, or parents should not be cut out of those kinds of decisions. Social transition for a child can lead to lifelong consequences. It can lead to a child being taken out of their parents' custody, which then can make them ripe for all kinds of abuse. Ayanna Presley says abortion care, that oxymoron, would be inaccessible and illegal no matter where you live. And as we've already mentioned, Project 2025 does not say that. They do not say that. They've got some more fact checks on their X. And because we'll actually end with that fact check, let me go ahead and tell you about our last sponsor for the day before we close out. That's My Patriot Supply. All right, we got to be prepared. We don't know what's going to happen in the coming months. It is going to be absolutely crazy as Democrats try their darndest to beat Trump. Is Biden still going to be president? We don't know because, and I say this genuinely, we don't even know if he is going to be with us mentally or physically in the coming months. Unfortunately, he is just rapidly declining. So what's going to happen with this election? The left is going to get more and more desperate. That means we just don't know what's going to happen. We just don't know what's going to happen economically. We don't know what kind of surprise we are in for in the coming months that they may hope will sway the election in their direction. You just need to be prepared for anything. So get your food supply taken care of, your emergency food supply from My Patriot Supply. They offer these amazing 4-week emergency food kits that give you 2,000 calorie a day meals. Get one kit for you and every member of your family so you are fully prepared. Go to preparewithallie.com. You will save $50 on each kit. Preparewithallie.com for your 4-week emergency food kit. Preparewithallie.com. Okay, we've got some more fact checks from Project 2025 itself. Now, President Trump, as I said, has disavowed it. He said, "No, I'm not a part of it." JD Vance and Marco Rubio have also been fielding questions about this because they are vying for that VP spot. In my opinion, both of them have been way too squishy about it. They've been way too squishy on things like abortion. And again, I wanted to get into all of that today with the change to the RNC platform, which was completely sketchy and corrupt and terrible and anti-pro-life in many ways and just completely unnecessary. But we just don't have time to get into all of that today. I just don't think all of this disavowing needs to happen, even though it is true that Project 2025 is not officially associated with President Trump. Like, by disavowing Project 2025, which has a lot of important features to it, which just, again, has a lot of mainstream conservative features to it, you're not winning anyone over. Like, you're not going to all of a sudden get an independent who hated Donald Trump to vote for Donald Trump now. Like, you think the left is going to back off because President Trump says I'm not associated with this? They're not. They're just going to double down. So all you're doing is potentially pissing off some conservatives who actually like a lot of the points in Project 2025. Same thing with the changes to the RNC platform. You're just pissing off pro-lifers and evangelicals who, as I heard it said this weekend by Ryan Anderson, have really become like the cheap date of the Republican Party. Buy us a couple drinks. We'll still do what you want to do because at least you're not the left. It's a really bad system that Republicans have been placed in. And unfortunately, even though I think maybe it's the right pragmatic political choice for President Trump to distance himself from Project 2025 right now, I'm not really sure that it's accomplishing him that much. I am just not sure about it. Again, the fact is we should just kind of like ignore any questions or fear-mongering in these interviews about Project 2025 and point out how truly radical the Democrats are and have proven themselves to be not just some like left-wing think tank, but what Biden has actually done and really does concretely stand for. Anyway, here's Project 2025's response to a lot of this stuff. So, as I said, Mark Hamill, he lists in this infographic all of the things that Project 2025 is going to do, like in no-fault divorce. Project 2025 says divorce is not mentioned in our policy handbook at all. Number 2, complete ban on abortions. They say, nope, as we've already mentioned, that's actually not something that they are calling for. They are calling for federal support of alternatives to abortion. Ban contraceptives. They say false. Mandate for leadership says nothing about banning or even restricting contraception. Number 4, additional tax breaks for corporations and the 1%. They said this is misleading. They are calling for lower taxes for all Americans to stimulate economic growth and put more money in Americans' pockets. Higher taxes for the working class. They say that's false. We call for lower taxes for all Americans. Elimination of unions and worker protections. Mandate for leadership says this is, or Project 2025 says this is false. Mandate for leadership presents different ideas about a conservative labor policy. It calls for combating the excesses of the deep state's bloated federal employee unions. Raise the retirement age. False. Raising the retirement age is nowhere advocated for in Mandate for Leadership. Cut Social Security. False. Mandate for Leadership does not advocate cutting Social Security. And Affordable Care Act. False. Mandate for Leadership offers policy suggestions to curb the abuses of the ACA. Raise prescription drug prices. False. Mandate for Leadership offers proposals to lower drug prices through competition and innovation. Eliminate the Department of Education. True, they say. Mandate for Leadership calls for an end to the Department of Education. Since the department was created, educational outcomes have not improved. That goes back to what we were saying earlier. Use public taxpayer money for private religious schools. True, they say. Families should have the choice to send their children to these schools, so the money should be given to the parents to basically make that choice. Now, there's a lot of conservatives that may disagree with that because then you have public funding of private schools, which could mean that there are strings attached, that you are going to be beholden to certain policies by the government if you take money from the federal government. There's a debate over that, like within conservatives, what the best method is there as far as school choice and school freedom. Teach Christian religious beliefs in public schools. They say that's false. They advocate for all educational opportunities and for parental rights in education and free and discounted school lunch programs. That is false. It is actually, let me just say, the Biden administration that has done that. They are the ones that have threatened schools who do not comply with Title IX changes to allow boys into girls' bathrooms and locker rooms with removing free lunches for poor students. That's a fact. We've talked about that on that show. We will include the link in this description. In civil rights and DEI protections in government, they say this is mostly false. We've covered that. They want to end race-based anti-American propaganda in the federal workforce. Ban Black people and gender studies, or Black and gender studies in all levels of education. False. They don't even mention this. Ban books and curriculum about slavery. False. They do not advocate for that. In climate protections. False. They just want to become energy independent, get rid of regulations that hurt farmers, hunters, fishers, because they know how to protect our environment better than DC bureaucrats, which is true. Increase Arctic drilling. They say this is true. They say this actually helps us be energy independent. Deregulate big business and the oil industry. They say this is mostly true. They want fewer burdensome regulations on all businesses. Promote and expedite capital punishment. They say this is true. It calls for the enforcement of the federal death penalty where appropriate and applicable, not getting rid of due process. End marriage equality. They say this is false. The legal recognition of same-sex marriage is not discussed in Mandate for Leadership. Mandate calls for the protection of faith-based grant recipients who maintain support for the traditional definition of marriage. Mandate also supports conscience protections for those who do not wish to participate in same-sex marriages, which, by the way, the left has been pushing the Equality Act, which is against both of those things. It is for discriminating against faith-based institutions who do not recognize the holiness of two men or two women coming together in what they deem a marriage. Condemn single mothers while promoting only traditional families. This is false. They don't mention that. They do want to encourage marriage, work, motherhood, fatherhood, and nuclear families, though. Defund the FBI and Homeland Security. They say this is false. They want to de-weaponize the federal government. They are not trying to actually defund those institutions. Use military to break up domestic protests. They say this is false, and this is not anywhere mentioned or even implied in their playbook. Mass deportation of immigrants and incarceration in camps. This is misleading. They do support an orderly and lawful immigration system. They do want to deport illegal immigrants, and they want to put an end to President Biden's border crisis and enforce immigration laws. There's no concentration camps that they are talking about here. And birthright citizenship, false. There's no mention of that. Ban Muslims from entering the country, false. There's no mention of that. Eliminate federal agencies like the FDA, EPA, and more, false. They would not eliminate the FDA or EPA. They would be transferred. The functions would be transferred to other agencies, the private sector, and states and territories. Continue to pack the Supreme Court and lower courts with right-wing judges. That, again, that's not the definition of court packing. Court packing would be what the left wants to do, which is expand the Supreme Court and then pack it with left-wing ideologues. What the right has done is what every administration has done. You appoint judges and justices that align with the Constitution, that align with your values. That's what both parties do. That is part of the constitutional powers of the president and of Congress to be able to appoint and approve of those judges. But Project 2025 says this is false. And they say the only people calling for packing the judiciary are those on the left. So, man, there is more that we could say about this, but we've already gone really long today. My hope was to have a more abbreviated episode. LOL. LOL. This is such a big subject that we could get into even more. And like I said, we probably will. Thanks to my team for all of the research on this. This took a lot of effort, reading organization to sift through. And while I do encourage you to read it for yourself, I want you to, because I want you to know the facts. I definitely am not trying to, I would never want to gatekeep this. Understand when one side doesn't want you to read the source of a controversy and only wants you to listen to their commentary on it, they're probably lying. Okay? That's a pretty good rule of thumb. I always, if I am talking about a sermon, I'm talking about an interview, I'm talking about a Bible passage, I'm talking about an article, I'm talking about a document like this, I'm talking about a Supreme Court case, I'm talking about a law, I always want you to go to the source and read it for yourself. A lot of you don't have time to do that, which is why you listen to me and watch me, which is great. But I want you to know that it is always available to you. I want you to go see the full context. And I want you to fact check me. I want you to push back against me based on what you are reading. The person or the side that does not want you to do that is lying. Okay? So go to the source yourself. You can read it all for yourself, but I hope that I've done a good job at explaining this as much as possible and giving you a summary, albeit a kind of long summary about what this actually is. And the fear-mongering is just going to increase. So keep your level head. And if you don't have the ability to refute exactly what someone is saying about this, ask them the question. That's how you deal with these kinds of hysterical conversations. Where did you read that? Can I read what you read that led you to make that conclusion? Where are you getting that information? Well, have you thought about this? Or what about this? Are you sure about this? Start to have the conversation. And as you have those back and forths with questions that make them think, one, they'll start thinking about it rather than just repeating the talking points, as long as they don't shut you down in anger. But also, it'll give you some time to really think about it and get to the core of these issues. Because at the end of the day, like, the left disagrees with these things because they disagree with them. They disagree with them politically. But the left can no longer just disagree with something. It becomes this existential threat to democracy. Remember, here's the rule of thumb that we've been talking about. To the left, authoritarianism is democracy that they don't like. And democracy is authoritarianism that they do like. Okay? So when you remember that and when you see their claims through that lens, you can see that most of what they say is hypocrisy and projection. All right? That doesn't mean that we can't hold our own side to account, that we can't, call out our side when we are wrong, because we absolutely can, and our side is wrong plenty of times. But as I've heard someone say, we cannot progress if we don't live in a shared reality. And we have to live in the shared reality of what Project 2025 actually says, of what the facts really are. And we are contending against a side that doesn't think that a baby is a person until it passes through the birth canal and maybe for a few minutes after, and also believes that a man can become a woman. And that is why we are having the issues that we are having, because we have very fundamental existential disagreements about human nature, human rights, where rights come from, what the foundation of our country is. So just remember that really, like, our disagreements today are so theological in nature, and so much else is just noise. And so we still have gnats in the studio. So that's why I am waving like a crazy person. So just remember that in all your conversations with your friends leading up to the election. All right. That's all we got time for today. Go to sharethearrows.com, by the way. Sharethearrows.com. We've got our event coming up September 28th. We're super pumped about it. And we will see you guys back here on Monday.